You may not believe it, but the truth is gun control is dead, and it's been dead for a while because, well, for all practical purposes. Obviously, there's still laws. People are still enforcing them. We're still fighting those in court. There are new laws in places like California and Illinois and so on, which are always disastrous, and we're fighting those in legislatures across the country. I think President Trump will help with some of those things, if not all of them, but certainly some. As things are going forward. But from a practical perspective, from the perspective of government making certain that you, the American citizen, cannot have a firearm, that they can take your gun away, I'm going to tell you right now, gun control is dead. Now, I'm going to say that on for a couple of points here. One, guns are sold between friends a lot, so guns are inherited and so on. Well, if I buy a gun from a store in California and I take it to my home in Arizona and I'm hunting with a buddy and a buddy likes the gun and I decide to sell it to my buddy because it's legal to do that in Arizona rather, and I don't need a bill of sale or whatever as far as I know, I sell him my shotgun for a couple $100 or $500 or whatever because he always likes it and I really don't like the thing anyhow. That gun is gone. It's untraceable now because it's gone to my friend. And if he decides to leave that to one of his sons when he passes away, now his son has that and his son gives it to his kid or sells it to his buddy, you can see where this disappears. And most of the United States is like that. And so as a result, most guns are untraceable because they can only be traced back to the original purchaser at the gun store where it was purchased and the manufacturer. That's it. Because they've been sold or whatever. Now, you have states like California that require guns being sold at a dealer, even in a private sale, but those are rare. There's not very many states like that. The majority of the guns in the country are not in states like that. And even people like me who buy them in California, if I move to another state, and many people have left California to move to free states, and they decide to sell the gun they bought in California, California doesn't know, California can't track it, and the ATF doesn't know. So those guns are gone. So that, in that sense, nobody's going to come and take that gun away from you because they don't know you have it because you bought it in a private sale or you inherited it or whatever. And there are a lot of guns in California like that, where people who have inherited them from family members or they moved to California and brought it with them and they have no idea that they're supposed to tell a California government that they brought it into the state because it's not a publicized law. So they just don't. For all practical purposes, most people who have guns and move to California don't tell California they got them. Not because they're trying to get away with anything, but because they don't know they're supposed to. So there's a whole lot of guns out there. Nobody knows where they are, who's got them, whatever. That's the first thing. The second thing is the advent of technology. I've got a 3D printer right here. It's a Bamboo Lab P1S. I don't have a picture of it, but you can, I can tap on it over here. And I use it for all kinds of things for work. My wife uses it. She's a speech and language pathologist, so she prints toys for the kiddos and like that. But that 3D printer would do a wonderful job of printing a lower for a firearm. And if I buy the upgrades, which is like, $75, $80, so that it will print carbon fiber, I could even print a stronger lower for an AR or a handgun or whatever. And a lot of people do. Now in California, I cannot do that legally, and so I don't. But I may buy the same printer for Arizona, and if that's the case, in Arizona, I certainly can because it's legal. I couldn't bring that printed gun or that home-created gun into a state like California because that's not legal. But the point is that there are most of the United States, depending on where you live, it's legal for you to make your own firearms. You can do it with a 3D printer, buy some parts, put it together. You can do it with a home CNC machine. You can buy a CNC machine that's no bigger than that printer and put a hunk of aluminum in it and pull out an AR lower. Really? I mean, it's not tough, right? And printers, you buy a less expensive printer, you can get a decent 3D printer that will do any of these kind of things. I think Ender 3 is pretty common, I think, for $300-$400, sometimes less. Now, this one was expensive, I get it, but that's not necessarily what you have to do. So because we have the technology to create things at our home with home CNC machines, which are actually coming down in price a lot, and 3D printers, which are coming down in price a lot and becoming ubiquitous. Everybody I know at this point is buying or has bought a 3D printer. And so they're going to become more common. They'll be like microwaves. What does that do to gun control? I'm not going to make one in California because I don't violate the law. I fight to change the law, but I'm not violating it. But that doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to do it. And that doesn't mean that if the United States went full tilt tyrannical and started taking guns away, that I couldn't do it to make certain that I had the ability to fight back against tyranny. So what does that do to gun control? When the Second Amendment was put in the Constitution for the express purpose of fighting back against a tyrannical government, the government wants to know where all the guns are because they want to be able to take them away. Well, they don't know where all the guns are. They will never know where all the guns are. And now people can make them and do make them in most of the states of the Union completely legally, and the government doesn't know that they made them. And even in the states like California where they don't make them legally because it's illegal, that doesn't mean I can't own the tool with which to make it. It doesn't mean I can't possess the files on my computer with which to make it. And therefore, it doesn't mean that I could not make it if all of a sudden the country went, full tilt tyrannical and took all guns away, that I couldn't suddenly just make my own. The reason why the egg prices didn't bother people who have chickens is because they have chickens. The reason why the cost of produce doesn't bother people when it skyrockets who have gardens is because they have gardens and fruit trees. The reason why I didn't have a problem with the ammo shortages, the last 3 we've had, is because I reload, and during the good times I stock up on things like primers and other components, and I just made ammo because I can. Didn't have to worry about the fact that you couldn't find 9mm or .223 or whatever anywhere. I just loaded it. And so I didn't have the issue. And I think Americans need to give some thought to being prepared to make their own firearms, even if they don't want to do it right now, or even if they live in a state where they can't do it legally, just in case one day you have to. However, regardless, let's fight the laws. We need to do that. We need to change them. We need to change the laws. We need to keep new crummy laws from happening. We need to elect great people who are Second Amendment advocates. But the truth is, for all practical, applicable purposes, gun control is dead.